On this episode of the John 1911 podcast, Daniel, Penny, and Luigi, Staccato dumpster fire, the FBI comes clean, and the Kimberly Guilfoyle payoff.
Good morning, everybody. This is Kraken and Marky, and this is episode 357 of the John 1911 podcast. Today is, I do this every time, Saturday, December the 14th at 11:40 a.m., a little bit late this morning. I like to timestamp stuff in case things develop while we are on pod and people think that we don't know what we're talking about. So Kraken and I were just having a conversation off pod, and I stopped him and I said, let's talk about it on pod. I had mentioned to him that T-Rex Arms had done a video with a bunch of Staccato guns, so 2011s. Actually, I guess technically they are officially 2011s because Staccato owns that IP, that name. So they had done, if I recall correctly, it's 3 guns. It was 6,000 rounds, average 2,000 rounds a gun, and they had all kinds of problems, which doesn't surprise me because I don't have a very positive opinion of 2011s in general. And I had said that to you, and then you said, what was your response? Because I just want to record it at this point.
I'm finding more and more as I'm deeper into the Staccato world. I was heavily invested into them there for a while and then divested. But it's appearing more and more like Staccato is selling a lot of name, and it's, for a lot of guys, it's what they buy when they want something really good, but aren't really sure what really good is. And the knockoff that Springfield did, the Prodigy, is a flaming hot dumpster fire.
Yeah, people that know me, that listen and consume our content, are like, oh God, Marky's going to say it. But we get all these new people all the time. So I'm going to say it again, just so I can have a baseline. In my opinion, 2011s, and when I say 2011, I don't just mean Staccato. I mean all these guns that are copies of these 2011 guns are over-railed, over-lugged, and they have stupid magazines in them. That's a 45 ACP sized mag body that makes the mags unreliable and sensitive to being damaged, which in turn makes the grip stupid fat. And it's a dumpster fire of a gun. And but what's interesting is, you said about the Prodigy, is I have noticed at least 2, and I'm sure there'll be more. No, 3. There are 3 custom gunsmiths, like one-man shop, full custom gunsmiths, that are offering Prodigy packages. They develop packages, and it's because they expect that a lot of people are going to buy these Prodigies, and then dudes like to mess with their guns or put money in their guns or tweak their guns, and so it's an opportunity for them to make money. There's a bunch of people that would never buy a full custom gun from some of these gunsmiths because it's a 2, 3, 4 year wait list. But for $15, $17, $18, $2,000, I think, you can get a tune-up package or a Prodigy style package. And I thought that was, while they didn't specifically say it, it's a money grab, but it's a reflection of how many of these guns that either they expect Springfield to sell or how many they are seeing on the secondary, on the open market. So, I mean, I don't know. Would Springfield consider the Prodigy a failure? Probably not. I mean, they're selling them. I mean, Kimber sells a shit ton of guns. They work until they beat themselves to death sometimes. I mean, I ran Kimbers for years. So I don't know. Like, I'm not like I don't want to, come at people with 2011s like I'm trying to burn them at the stake, the way they try to do it to me when I say anything bad about their guns. It's not a gun that I pay that much attention to. So I thought it was interesting that the T-Rex guys did the video on the Staccatos. And I was like, why are these guys doing these videos on Staccatos? Because I know that they're not big fans of 2011s. And then I realized, they're offering 1911 holsters for sale.
Yeah.
That's why they bought them. So,
Now,
what go ahead.
In all fairness, I do have to qualify a bit of my statement on the Staccatos. I owned 5 of them at one time, and one thing I did learn about the Staccato is some of the failures are shooter induced because the grip is so big, so fat, and and uh, and so deep to get a purchase of it on a draw stroke. Especially guys that are trying to shoot a high hold and use the thumb safety as a lever for their thumb.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, what we're finding a lot of times is the grip safety is not being engaged fully, and that's part of what's leading to some of the problems. So some of it is not the gun, some of it is operator error, uh, and that's why, especially guys with smaller hands, you see a lot of staccatos with rubber bands around the grip safety. So there is some operator error in there, but again, in my opinion, a good part of that is induced by that just giant grip that they have to accommodate that magazine.
Yes. I mean, it's the same problem that a lot of service pistols have, and so it's not really a Staccato or 2011. It's not like they're doing this on purpose. It's just they don't. Most let me say that most people that build 2011s, and I always feel like from now on, when I say 2011, I mean everybody that makes a copy of a 2011. I don't mean Staccato. I know they own the name, but whenever people that make 2011s, the reason they make 2011s is because they're not inventing anything new. Yeah, they can play around the edges and they can fit things and make some minor changes. But, if you got a custom gunsmith who's making a 2011, he didn't make that frame, he didn't make that slide, he didn't make that, that grip module. He's OEMing that stuff out to other manufacturers. It's just like the AR game. There's a ton of different companies that make ARs, and a lot of it, as long as you stay within mil spec, is interchangeable-ish, and nobody owns the IP anymore. Like, no one's having to pay money to Colt to make ARs or to copy these guns, and that's what happens with these 2011s. But so instead of designing a gun from the ground up to make improvements, they're just cloning what's already been done. And the 2011 has the same problem that the average H&K pistol minus the VP9 has. And the P7 is about, these guns don't fit about 30% of the population. If you don't have, like, I wear large, extra large size gloves. If you're not a large male or you have small hands, I mean, these 2011s with these stupid magazines in them just aren't going to fit people. Just like H&K service pistols don't fit people, and it's because that stupid magazine. And what I thought was interesting is, again, I've said some pretty shitty things about 2011s because I was looking at 2011s 30 years ago, and people will come in and they'll talk about Atlas, or they'll come in and talk about is it MBX magazines?
I believe so,
yeah.
Yeah.
MBX, and like to talk about the quality of the magazines. And it's like, well, the magazines aren't that much quality because they don't last forever like Glock magazines. And they, they cost $120 or $100. I don't know what they cost now, but they're a lot. And proof of my criticism of these magazines exists right under the 2011 people's noses. It's like, how come people keep trying to make 2011s with different magazines? We get one with Glock. Everyone was, happy about the gun that had the Glock magazines. I can't remember. Was that the Platypus? It takes Glock magazines. Well, it's like, well, that's good because the argument is that Glock magazines are plentiful and people already own them and they're inexpensive. But what are the other two qualities about a Glock magazine that's better than an MBX or any other of these factory 2011 magazines. Number one, they're basically indestructible. And number two, they're considerably smaller. So you can make the frame smaller. And that means you can make the grip smaller and you can make the gun smaller. And then the ultimate proof that this is a problem is I've heard, I don't know the details, but does Staccato have a new line of guns that have come out with a new magazine that's like a proprietary magazine?
I haven't seen one yet, but it's been all the talk on the Staccato pages. I'm not sure if they've been released. I know they did away with the C and came out with a newer version of a single stack. Again, since I divested from Staccato, I really haven't put a lot of effort into finding one to play with.
A
But
single stack, but that would just be a 1911.
yeah, it was their Model C. It was basically a compact single stack, and I had one and did not have good luck with it. Had horrible failure to feed issues no matter what I did with it. Even ordered up Wilson Combat mags to run in it, and nothing would cure it. Changed springs. Uh, Finally made it somebody else's problem. It was one of the least reliable handguns I've probably owned in the last 15 years.
Well, traditional 1911s, that the smaller they get, the less reliable they get because of all the spring, the speed of everything and the forces. I've generally never even looked at a 1911 that's smaller than really commander size. Because that was always the old way. These days, there's people that have it figured out. That's why you see some of these companies, if they go smaller than 4.25, they do bull barrels, or whatever you want to call them. So, yeah, but I know that Staccato, they've got some kind of gun that's a 2011, and maybe it's a smaller gun. Maybe they're selling it as a compact gun, but it doesn't use 2011 magazines, and that is what we call a clue, because Staccato knows, just like everybody else knows, that the biggest thing that kills a 2011 are those magazines, because that entire gun, that frame size, is built around a double stack 45 ACP sized bullet. And people just started stuffing 9mm in that. And if you don't want to, if you're listening to this and you don't want to have the technical conversation or you don't want to hear it, the next time you're at a gun store, or if you have it in your collection, just get a Glock 17 out and hold it in your hand, and then get a Glock 20 or Glock 21, which is the 45 or the 10mm. It's got to be the 20 or 21 because it's got to be a double stack gun. And you'll notice how much bigger the Glock 45 ACP large frame Glock is compared to the Glock 17 and 9mm. Well, a 2011 is just equivalent in Glock, is just a Glock 20 or 21 stuffed with 9mm bullets in it, and all the compromises that are made to get that to work. And the reason it's done that way is all the people that make these guns don't invent or actually make their own parts. They buy them from suppliers that are already making it. So very few people have the money or the resources or technical ability to engineer new stuff from the ground up. And as much as we can criticize SIG with all their P320 problems, they do. As an example, SIG invents new guns from the ground up. Custom gunsmiths generally don't. They just tweak existing designs because they don't have the capability to manufacture actual stuff. So you're kind of in this weird space with the 2011s, and as the 2011 matures and becomes more common, you see people will try to overcome these problems. They switch to external extractors, they switch to new magazine designs, they switch to new frame designs. The biggest example that I can give is obviously the Wilson Combat X9 guns, because we've posted these videos. We've posted these videos of this Project 77 gun the Division 77 Project 1 gun, and people will come in. It's getting a lot of traffic because it's a new gun and people are kind of hip to it because you just want to see what it's about. And they call it a 2011. And it's like, well, because they were like, well, it's a double stack 1911. It's like, well, this gun has nothing to do with the 2011. It's a whole new gun from the ground up. Actually, it mechanically, I don't know if Glock or I don't know if Wilson would agree with this, but the way I describe it to the individual is that mechanically it functions more like a modern striker gun. It functions off, it locks on the hood. It doesn't have those dual radial lugs. It uses a way better magazine, has a custom frame to accommodate that magazine. It's not modular in the sense like 2011 is where you buy whole new grip frames. It's a whole new animal. Kimber has, is it the Kimber DS double stack? What do they call that gun that's come out? I haven't even paid attention to it.
Not familiar with that one because Kimber just doesn't interest me. So I just don't put a lot of brain matter into following them, to be honest.
Yeah, when I first got into 1911s, I ran Kimbers exclusively. And eventually I got out of them. But I mean, I put tens of thousands of rounds through Kimbers. They did better than most people give them credit for. But I think Kimber's got some kind of gun that it's a double stack 1911. It's because they're trying to compete with the Staccatos and all these people making these double stack 1911s, these 2011s. But it's not a 2011. I mean, I think the frame's different and it might use a different magazine. If you look at the gun, it doesn't look like a 2011. It looks like it's its own animal. I don't know what kind of magazine it holds, but if you're listening to this and you're like, I know about let me know give me some details so I don't have to Google it while we're on. So what else do you want to talk about since we just shit on Staccato, which I don't mean to do, but so it's not what this is about. You want to talk? I mean, there's been so much going on, and I have not been as up on the podcast as I need to be. Unfortunately, been a little bit busy, and then unfortunately, I even was under the weather yesterday, and you've been busy. So, you want to talk about? I don't know what the hero, the proletariat dude, and then you've got the one kid that shoots the CEO in the streets and he's a hero, and the other kid who defends a bunch of people from a crazy person on a subway and he's a villain. Could New York City become any more like Gotham City in the Batman movies at this point? At some point someone's going to jump out behind the woods with like a face painted like the Joker, mass murdering people down Broadway or something. Like, it's unreal how crazy this is.
Yeah, night is day, day is night. It's topsy-turvy. Daniel Penny should have never been charged. He should have been given a medal. And the stuff that you see on Facebook and some of the talking heads trying to justify this back-shooting coward that shot this CEO, I'll tell you what, it really makes me question my faith in humanity. Some of the stuff that you see where they're trying to justify what this back-shooting piece of shit coward did has no place in civilized society. And if you're listening to this and you think that shooter was a hero or making some kind of a statement, you're traveling in the same circles as his ilk, and shame on you. And that's where I'm at with it. I'm absolutely disgusted by some of the responses.
Yeah, you and I agree completely. I just would say it. I choose to say it a little bit differently. I'm not unsympathetic to people that, hate the insurance companies. And I'm not even saying that, maybe that guy's insurance company, maybe there's a problem there. I would assume maybe there is. But, Stalin had a term for this, and he called these kinds of people useful idiots. And the people that support these people, unfortunately, are useful idiots. And what happens is people have a little bit of information And maybe they didn't like this CEO person or this company, which is apparently justified, which is fine, but they're projecting their values or their beliefs, or if nothing else, they're just doing jersey waving like it's some kind of NFL football game, the blue jersey versus the red jersey kind of stuff. And they're going to be surprised, and they're going to be made to look like fools when the facts come out about some of this stuff. Like, old Daniel, like, people are saying this Daniel Penny, or I'm sorry, the Luigi guy, like somehow is this hero, and like they support him, and they just want to look at him as if he is one of them. And it's like, this kid probably, he's of the right age. I don't know this, but you're certainly aware of this as a cop, that schizophrenia and mental illnesses, like certain types of mental illnesses tend to manifest themselves when people are in their early 20s to maybe mid 20s. Like, most people don't get diagnosed with schizophrenia at 45.
No.
Paranoid schizophrenia and that kind of stuff tends, I'm not a doctor, but they and there's always outliers, because it's like it's a scale, and so you can fall on different places on the scale. But if you look at the overarching highest point of where people get diagnosed with this kind of stuff, this Luigi kid is right in that thing. And it's like, they start digging into some of this stuff this kid supports, and like they stop reporting on it. Like, for example, he came out and he said he had opinion on it. And he said that they need to ban sex toys in Japan so people would have more babies and be more likely to get into relationships, because the population was falling in Japan. Like, he advocated, it's like, you think it's a joke, but it's like, no, he's actually advocating making sex toys illegal. And it's like, you're looking at this kid thinking he's on your team, and then you're like, wait a minute, it's just like the episode of Footloose, like, there's the preacher who's, real religious and whatever, and then the kids just want to dance, and it's like, there's this big culture clash here. Like, is Luigi a religious person? No, Luigi's crazy. And like, another thing he advocated for, and this is true, he advocated for making vending machines illegal. And his argument was very much the same. He felt that vending machines were just a way for people to accomplish commercial transactions without having to deal with another human being. And that was reducing your chances of meeting a significant other or having a girlfriend or, copulating. And he thought that should be banned. He wants to ban vending machines. And very quickly, when you start looking at this kid, you can see it's a combination between Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber guy who hated modern technology, and an incel kid who can't get a girlfriend or isn't capable of getting a girlfriend, or all the girls are turned off by him because something's wrong with him. Because when they see him, they're like, something's wrong with this fucking kid. And so he becomes angry and starts lashing out at the world. Like, and people want to make this into some kind of like, fuck United Health or whatever I don't even know what the healthcare company is. And it's like, I don't know, dude. I would not make any public statements. Coming out in support of this kid, because you are going to get burned by it. And here's an example of something in the past that's come out now to prove a point. Just to kind of put the corners on it. So within the past 10 years, there's been, the West has been in conflict with Bashar al-Assad. Yeah, Bashar's the one that just fled in Syria, right?
al-Assad.
Yeah, and Hafez al-Assad was his dad, so I remember Hafez. So Bashar al-Assad, and there's been, like this argument, like, I remember people used to complain about John McCain supporting the rebels, and then we put all this money. Then some of these rebels turned into ISIS, and some of these guys went into Iraq and caused all kinds of issues. I knew a guy from the United States who went to Syria to fight with the rebels in Syria. This is pre-ISIS, and then when the ISIS situation started to develop and turn, he was put on a watch list. And so he went to the Kurdistan, northern Iraq, and joined the Kurds because he had gone over there to fight with the rebels who ultimately ended up turning into ISIS. And all of a sudden he's like, holy fuck, I'm now officially a supporter of ISIS tangentially. I need to get the fuck out of here. And so he goes to Kurdistan, and all of a sudden he's all about the Kurds and just forget about his time when he was kind of working with ISIS. And so then, but I'm not done. There's people that are like, okay, when we bombing and hitting targets and doing things in Syria, which sucks. Okay, I get it. And there were people arguing, saying, well, like all these people on the side of Bashar al-Assad, there's the Alawites, the Alawites are crazy. Like, if you want to, like, I'd love to talk about the Alawite religion. It's crazy. I do this years ago. The Alawites, you've got Sunnis. Well, Sunnis are typically on the other side. You've got the Druze. You've got Orthodox Christians, some Coptic Christians, and I see like various Orthodox religions. So you've got some people that are maybe Christian that are kind of on the side of Assad, and the other side is the rebels turned into basically ISIS. And it's like, why are we bombing the side with the Christians? And it's like, well, be careful where you hook what train you hook your caboose up to. Because it's not going to be that simple. Some people choose a side because they're just trying to survive, or they don't really have a choice, okay? And now it's coming out that the Assad people, like, they've killed 50,000 people in some of these prisons, or in like these prison systems. And like there's a report, I read this last night, there's guys they pulled out of these prisons, and now that Syria's fallen. There's a guy, he goes, he's like, you're free, you're out of the jail, and he's been in jail since the 80s, the 1980s. Okay, you and I remember the 80s, baby. We was there. He literally thought Hafez al-Assad was still the leader of Syria. So, the current guy's dad. And, he thought that it was Saddam Hussein's army that had invaded Syria and rescued him. He has no idea what's been going on in the outside world since the 1980s. And it's like, people that try to come out on the side of the Assads, I mean, and what I'm doing here is I'm creating a scenario where there's a no-win. You can either, if you want to be like a Star Trek guy, be like, it's a Kobayashi Maru, you can't win. Or there's an actual technical foreign policy term that has fallen out of favor because it's not politically correct to describe these situations in these places. And Donald Trump used it, and people tried to burn him to the ground on it in his first term. And the term is shithole countries. Why are we letting people in from these shithole countries? Because sometimes you can't go into these places or these situations and find the good guy. Because there is no good guy. It's a shithole place, shithole people. Just like Luigi in Manhattan, okay, people are trying to project their worldview onto this person of right and wrong when this person has nothing in common. He has no relation to anything that you think of how things work in the real world. This guy, if you gave him the power and the authority to control your life, it would be a clown show hellfest. You know, I mean, Lord knows what this guy would do. It's coming out that one of his plots was to set off a bomb in Manhattan and bomb these people. And it's like, okay, so that's what we're going. And I'll tell you what, the original sign that people were projecting bullshit on this guy, and you remember this, Kraken. Remember this first happened, it's like, oh my God, this guy's like a trained assassin. And it's like, what the fuck? Like, I don't know what you're talking about. You know, and like, he wasn't, I mean, like, he was like some expert assassin and like this expert marksman. And like, you know, they watch these movies and, you know, they're projecting some kind of like, what's the Bourne identity
Yeah,
onto
he
this.
is not Jason Bourne.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah, and it's just like, yeah, he walked up to some guy and shot him as he's walking in the Starbucks. Like, literally, the guy, I think, was walking to Starbucks to get a coffee and shot him in the back. And, you know, with his 3D printed gun that doesn't function, so he has to keep cycling it because it doesn't have a booster on it. And then, you know, he's such a trained assassin that, you know, he left DNA at the crime scene. He showed his face at the hostel. They eventually found him, and he still had a gun and the gun on him, and a manifesto. And you know, and and I just want to say this before I forget. You know, because we posted the meme on social media about, you know, the Burger King versus McDonald's thing, because that's kind of funny. You know, we wouldn't have snitched. The idea that's being portrayed by the media and pop culture that this kid was identified and caught because he was in a McDonald's is horseshit. The mayor of New York said days before he was arrested they knew his name. It had come out that they had followed him. They were able to follow his trail all the way through the city. They found where he was sleeping. They found his fake IDs. That means they found his picture. And they were able, they had him all the way to the point to where he got onto a certain bus and took a bus ride and went away. And it's like, they knew this this fucking kid was. He wasn't picked up. It wasn't like this story that like some kid at McDonald's was like, I think that guy's here. That is just bald face lie. I mean, it's like, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. So, like, I mean, just this whole thing kind of stinks because the initial reporting was kind of wrong, you know, and then it was like the well rod thing. Like, you and I were talking because, you know, it's like, man, what's going on with this? And we were talking off pod, and you had, oh, what kind of gun is that? And I actually, before it became a popular thing, it became I told you, is that a well rod? You know, is it like one of those VP? I said that to you before it got into the media.
Yeah.
And then you were like, no, you were like, no, you had said something about maybe you saw a hammer. You saw movement at the back of the gun and the gas coming out of the gun. You were like, that's not a well rod. And I was like, it seems pretty long to be a well rod. Because I remember I guess the media calls it the Station 6 now. We used to call it the VP9, but it's the veterinarian gun. They weren't that long. And I was like, I don't know what I guess it's just a suppressor. So,
well, the length and the diameter of the suppressor was a red flag to me. It was just huge for what it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, why to go to all this trouble to print this gun? Well, here's another thing. Okay, this kid, he went to a $40,000 a year high school. He comes from a very well-to-do family. Why can't he buy a gun? If he wrote a manifesto and had it on, he planned on getting caught. He tried to not get. Did he try not to get caught, or was he just trying not to get caught that day?
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing, there's between movies and TV and different books out there, you can and all the true crime shows, you can become semi proficient, and I think that's where this guy might have picked up some of the stuff that he did. You can watch these true crime shows, where they solve a murder in 42 minutes minus commercials,
Mm-hmm.
and they talk about how the guy finally screws up and gets caught, or how he left this DNA here and that's what caught the guy. And people will watch those shows, but what they don't realize, these shows don't tell you everything. Just like in the investigation, they were onto this guy early, but they're not going to put it out there in public. They don't want to give this guy any advantage in his attempt to escape. So what they put out, you have to figure there's a certain percent that's just disinformation to help with the investigation. And if it isn't disinformation, it's a small percentage most of the time of what they really know. They're not going to put the entire file out on ABC News to give this guy a leg up on the escape. So some of the things he did that was making people say, oh, he's a trained assassin. Well, that's all crap you can get after watching a few episodes of First 48 or, I Almost Got Away with It or any of those other stupid shows and watching movies and all that. So I think he was a kid, he was a nut job with too much time that thought he was smarter at this kind of stuff that he was, but he had seen just enough TV or movies to make himself dangerous and, as an end result, lethal.
Well, I tell you what, I mean, I give the kid some credit because he was able to shoot a guy in downtown Manhattan at 6:30 or 6:45 in the morning, and then was able to get out of the city. So I mean, he's not operating from zero, but a couple things. I remember when the mayor of New York came out and was like, "We know his name," and I remember thinking that and being like, "You motherfucker!" Like, I literally want to get an axe handle and start beating him about the head.
There are
Like,
20 detectives that heard that and went, son of a bitch.
yeah, it was just like, what the fuck, you assholes? Yeah, and it was like, and then what was the other one? They had said that they were able to pick up I guess they were, he had bought like a power bar and some kind of drink while he was out there waiting,
Mm-hmm.
and they had his DNA. I mean, even if this kid had gotten away and they didn't know his name and didn't know his face. Let's just go from there. What they would have done with his DNA is they would have kept running it in federal databases, and then what they also do, and a lot of people don't realize this, is all these people that submitted DNA samples to like 23andMe, they start running them in those systems, and they're able to narrow down like, Marky in Cincinnati, Ohio is like a fifth cousin to this DNA.
Yeah.
And so, you know what I mean? And all of a sudden it's like, well, they can get, all of a sudden they've gone from 360 million people, they can maybe narrow it down to a few 100,000 people. And then maybe 50,000 people. And it's like, how many cousins can Marky have?
Geographic locations. Is there a
Yeah, and
lot? Is there a lot of
yeah,
Markies in West Virginia? It's a good place to start looking.
yeah, and people don't realize, some of this. And I remember, oddly enough, I don't know why it's rude right now. I remember talking to a couple of CEOs of I'm going to be oblique here, large medical large medical organizations. And they were off the record all saying the same thing. They were all like, no way in hell would I ever give my DNA to one of these companies.
Mm-hmm.
And they were talking about the fact that it's not going to be able to keep private and diseases and looking, like no way in hell we would ever do that. And these are, high net worth individuals that know how this industry works. And this was years before like 23andMe and these companies all got in trouble. But anyway, so this kid, like, and this is the other thing. I was like, okay, he comes from a good family. I'm not certain he was trying to get away with it. Why didn't he buy a gun? Why did he go to the trouble of 3D printing a gun? I guess 3D printing a suppressor? Was the suppressor homemade as well? Do we know that for certain? I don't know.
They haven't talked about what the suppressor is, but suppressors are actually surprisingly easy to make in your garage with some simple things you can go to an auto parts store to buy. Uh, it's not terribly difficult. You don't have to be a machinist to do it. So it's very, very, very possible it's homemade. I think he didn't buy a gun because he's educated himself enough in how other people have gotten caught that he realized, number one, that leaves a paper trail. And number two, I believe one of his 2 degrees is in computer engineering. So,
yeah,
finding a program to 3D print a frame and then buying say a fire control unit and assembling it is probably not stretching his abilities at all. So he was probably just educated enough in how to get away with something to realize that buying a gun, A, left a paper trail, or B, left witnesses if he tried to buy it on the street. So, hey, I'll just make one in my basement.
Okay, or he could have bought a gun. He's that smart. He could have bought a gun and then gotten a different barrel and then done what he wanted to do and then switched to barrel. And he could have gotten a barrel at a gun show. And, it's like, and then it's like, well, okay, but he didn't get rid of the gun. I think have they specifically said that the gun he had on him is the gun? Was it loaded? Was the gun he had on him loaded with bullets that had words on it, like at the McDonald's?
The reports that I've seen are that forensically they have been able to match the casings to the gun. They haven't done the ballistics on the barrel, but they've been able to, look at firing pin indentions, extractor marks, such as that, and been able to match it positively.
I am wondering if he was under disability of some kind.
Well, and that very well could be too if he's got a mental health history.
But the media is not reporting a mental health history at all.
Well, but HIPAA could put a lid on that, at least for now, until it comes out in court. So that just may be something that the media has not been able to be privy to, and investigators haven't released that. Who knows? There could be a, like you said, he could be under some type of disability, but if it's mental health, HIPAA might be the blanket on top of that right now at this point. It's a possibility.
It's a possibility. So, okay, what do you think about this theory that people are saying? Which I'm telling you, like, I can't say these people are wrong. They're like, we know more about Luigi in like a week than we know about the dude that shot former president and President-elect Donald Trump. Have you heard that argument?
Oh yeah, and the argument that Luigi is a fall guy. He never did it. It's a government conspiracy. It's Pelosi had him whacked because the CEO was getting ready to testify about insider trading. All kinds of weird shit like that. Here's the deal. The Secret Service screwed the pooch in Pennsylvania on Trump's protective detail. The outgoing administration doesn't give 2 shits about it. It's egg on their face. They're not going to put out anything more than they have to. And this guy is whacked a civilian, did it in a horrendous way, caught on video, NYPD was all over it. The feds were all over it. It's a big case. It doesn't hurt anybody really politically, so there's no reason not to run with that story and still keep the Pennsylvania shooter buried.
I think it's fair to say that that the story in New York with Luigi, um, politically works for a lot of these media outlets. Taylor Lorenz being the biggest one. She's crazy too, everybody. If you don't know who she is, you're fortunate. And so they're interested in it. Whereas the story about the Trump shooter, it's not in New York, it's in Pennsylvania. There is definitely, if a story happens in a major media market, it definitely is more interesting to the mainstream media to cover it. But the other thing is the idea, this is one, like you mentioned it, the insider trading, like it's a conspiracy because of somehow Pelosi and this guy was going to testify in insider trading. People that make that argument obviously don't know how insider trading works, especially in relation to Congress. So insider trading, okay, so there's two types of insider trading. Okay. I know something about this. Insider trading, like Martha Stewart, is an example of somebody who knows somebody in a company or is related to somebody in the company, and they're passing somebody along a tip. And then they make this trade that seems pretty speculative and unusual, and it really pays off, and it gets the attention of the SEC. And they're like, what the hell is going on here? You don't make these kinds of trades. Why did you suddenly buy 100,000 shares of whatever? You've never bought, then all of a sudden it went up 90%. That was a big win. Like, why did you make that trade? What was your justification? Did you get information? And so they trace a relationship between Martha Stewart and some dude that was in this company, and they got him because it showed up on, the grass. It was like, that's an unusual trade. But, people that hit home runs, you see certain kinds of activity. It's very rare for somebody to walk into a gym and bench an Olympic weightlifter's, personal record and then walk out, have never been in that gym before. And Martha Stewart was one of these people that basically walked into this gym, bam, all of a sudden got this huge win and then left and it got the attention of the SEC. That is not how insider trading works with Nancy Pelosi, people. How that works is members of Congress have hearings on various things that the government is involved in. Contracts, approvals, disapprovals, relationships, all kinds of stuff. And so members of Congress, they see the testimony, they see the private testimony, and they also do the whip count where they're like, well, 5 Republicans are going to vote yes on this, and 4 Republicans are going to vote no. So this is going to pass the committee and going to go to the floor. Well, you can be on that committee or know somebody in the committee, or and you'd be like, yeah, I think that's going to get out of the committee, and so that's probably going to get out, and it's going to make it, and so then they're going to vote on it. It'll probably be, so and so is going to get the contract, and so members of Congress kind of see which way the winds are blowing on certain things or against certain things, and they start trading on it. Nancy Pelosi doesn't need to talk to the CEO of a company to do insider trading. That is not how this works. And if you're being led by the nose down that path, I hate to tell you this, the people you are listening to are stupid. They don't know what they're talking about. None of this works this way. You've got a bunch of people that want to get you riled up with conspiracy theories, and really just so they can draw attention to themselves and monetize against you with advertising. But speaking of conspiracy theories, did you hear about the latest on January 6th? FBI?
Yeah, what was it? There were 3 informants that were told to be there, and like another 23 that just showed up on their own.
Let's see here. The FBI has said that they had 26 informants at the January 7th at the January 7th, whatever party, hoedown, insurrection, or I would just call it mostly peaceful protest. And it's just like, oh God. Do you remember the guy who, he was the tall guy and he wore the Marine Corps hat and they were all calling him a Fed. Do you remember him?
Yep.
Fed, Fed, Fed.
Kind of looked like he had a leadership role outside the building, and so they were trying to pin the Fed tag on him.
Has there been any more about him?
I haven't heard much. I think that theory kind of died out a little bit. He was able to kind of defeat it.
I don't know, I think he was charged. I don't know how it was adjudicated. And the reality is, if there's 26 people, I mean, I'm not, again, I just got done disproving conspiracy theories, but I bet you now my chances that, in my book, the chances that guy turned out that he was an asset of the FBI, either directly or indirectly, I think is astronomically higher than it was, a week ago. And, this is, it's interesting that it's all, why did this come out now? Who released this? Do we even know?
Well, Trump has said that, day one, an hour after he's inaugurated, he wants to pardon the J6ers that are in prison. So I think there's certain segments of the government that feel the wall's closing in a little bit. So some of this is having to come out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just not good. I mean, it's just, it's just, you can really see why Christopher Wray is retiring or quitting, and people are, I think, various people are they're not even finishing their term in the executive branch. They're quitting now because they don't want to get subpoenaed to testify before Congress. It's like, well, if we get out now, then we can, I don't have to go to hearings. I don't have to answer these questions. I'm out of government. Just check the paperwork. And it's just like that doesn't, I don't know. I just think politically, I think this January 6th thing is going to be a big drama when Trump's in. I think there's, a lot of stuff's going to come out that is not going to be good.
I think there's going to be a lot of stuff come out. Between Pam Bondi and Kash Patel, I think there's going to be a lot of stuff coming out. The thing that I'm kind of curious to see is just who gets blanket pardons and for how long and how many. Right now, I think that's I think that's solving for X right now, and I think that's going to that's going to give us a lot of insight, maybe just how deep some of this stuff runs with who's getting blanket pardons. Just the other day, what was it, 1,300 pardons and commutations, basically the most in any single day in modern history. And all the talking heads are pretty much saying, yeah, it's not even a good start yet. So,
yeah, most of the time pardons happen on the last day. And is Biden pardoned like a Chinese spy, or a Chinese spy that was caught with kiddie porn or something? Or is that one person?
He pardoned a Chinese national that had, I believe it was 47,000 images of child porn. They're spinning that as it was part of a prisoner exchange deal with the Chinese. The other one that really irks me is he pardoned a judge that was the ringleader of the Cash for Kids scheme, where he was sentencing juvenile offenders to a privatized for-profit prison and getting millions in kickbacks.
What was the justification for that?
because I can.
But why? Like, what's in it for? What's like who?
Well, the guy made millions and millions of dollars on this scheme. Basically there is no public explanation why. Just simply I'm the president and I can. And here's another one. I believe it's the city treasurer in Dixon, Illinois, that was in prison. She embezzled $54 million from the city. Yeah, just here, sign this, you're out.
That's
So,
obviously politically connected in Illinois, and
well,
then politically
yeah,
connected
yeah.
through Obama, and then it's Obama's people in the White House, and so that's probably what that is.
So, and then it still gets back to who's actually running the White House and how much of it is Biden actually the mastermind of this, or is it just a whole stack of here, sign these? Who knows at this point? The government's being run in such a way that nobody can say who's doing what, and some of these pardons just make no sense whatsoever. So
I'm reminded of a pardon. So George W. Bush. So you remember what the hell did they call that? Remember Valerie Plame? She was the wife of. She's the wife of Joe Wilson.
Yeah, she got outed.
Yeah, because she turned out to be an undercover CIA officer working, I think, in the State Department, possibly.
Yeah.
And she was his wife, and she had gotten outed. And the FBI was investigating, and they were working their way around. And at some point, everyone had for years. It was like fucking Dick Cheney, that motherfucker. We know it was him. He was because like her husband came out and said that the yellow cake story, that the Iraqis were getting yellow cake from like Nigeria was bullshit or wherever it was, maybe somewhere in Africa, I don't remember. And and like they were certain it was Dick Cheney. And they were interviewed. So Dick Cheney's chief of staff, or his number one guy, was Scooter Libby. And the FBI shows up to ask questions to Scooter. And Scooter, being a good little soldier, he is not completely truthful with the FBI. I can't remember exactly what he did or didn't do, but he wasn't like giving them everything they were asking for because he's trying to protect his boss, Dick Cheney. And Scooter Libby was charged with, I think, lying to federal investigators is a felony, and something else. So he was charged with a felony and was convicted. All right. And so here's the thing. Well, through all the investigation, they figured out none of this came from Dick Cheney or out of even Dick Cheney's office. Scooter Libby was trying to cover for Dick Cheney because he's a good little soldier. Dick Cheney had nothing to do with it. Turns out Robert Novak, the reporter for, I can't remember who he was working for at the time. He's the columnist. Novak, like he wrote the national columns. He knew she was a spy and like said something to a bunch of people and outed, and he's the one that outed her. He just apparently didn't know that it was a secret. And so they went to Bush and they're like, hey, it's your last day. Even Dick Cheney's like, let's pardon Scooter. Let's get him out. Let's get him off this. He's a convicted felon. And I can't remember what his rationale was, but Bush, I think, maybe commuted his sentence. Mm-hmm. Basically, Bush had decided he lied to the FBI. He committed a felony. He did something for him, like to maybe like, okay, you have time served, you're out, but he would not pardon him. Because he's like, motherfucker, you committed a felony and you lied to the FBI. Yeah. Even George W. Bush was like, nah, dude. And Scooter Libby, he was caught up in this investigation. for shit that they didn't even do.
Yeah.
And Bush wouldn't sign. Bush was like, no, you're not getting a pardon.
I'll bust
You're
you
not
out of
getting a,
jail, but you're still a convicted felon.
you're still a convicted felon. And what the fuck? I mean, like, what the fuck is going on at the Biden White House? I mean, it's just like, there's like some 25, 30-year-old communist in that West Wing that's running this shit.
Yeah.
And yeah, so
here's the interesting part of this. According to numerous legal scholars that I've listened to on this, if you're pardoned, you lose your ability to claim your Fifth Amendment privilege under legal questioning. So Hunter Biden could get called into a court case as a witness, and he cannot plead the Fifth. If you get pardoned, you lose your Fifth Amendment rights because
I mean, I know if they give you,
you're admitting you did it. If you accept the pardon, you admitted you did
well, no,
it.
you actually can't accept the pardon. It doesn't work like that.
Well,
Like,
yeah, I phrased that wrong, but you're no for things related to that, you are no longer allowed to claim the Fifth.
Yeah, they used to do this to mobsters. They would, be like, I assert my Fifth Amendment, my Fifth Amendment rights, Your Honor. And then, like, some prosecutor would be like, all right, capo, whatever, you have full immunity. Start talking. And if you don't start talking, everything that you don't do is going to be a charge, and we're going to put you in jail for all these charges of lying and in contempt, and we're going to enforce them. And I've never thought about it with pardons, but I guess, yeah. Do you think this pardon thing is going to get messy before Biden is out of office? Like, do you think,
is.
I mean, do you think, I don't know, do you think Biden's going to try to issue pardons for Trump and Hillary and,
Trump definitely not. And I don't think he will for Hillary simply because of the fact that he still feels betrayed by Obama when they bumped Hillary up and ran her in 2016.
Oh, I forgot. I didn't think about it that way.
And I'll tell you what. Here's conspiracy theory. I'll go to my grave thinking that Joe Biden actually voted for Donald Trump just out of spite. But he's not going to go as far as pardoning Trump. I think he'll let Hillary dangle because there's just no love lost there. He feels betrayed over that whole deal. And I think that there's probably two factions discussing blanket pardons right now in the Biden White House. Those who are, pardon Fauci, pardon Liz Cheney, pardon anybody that ever said a bad thing about Trump, because Trump's going to come in and use his office and sick Pam Bondi and cash tell on everybody, and we got 4 years of malicious prosecution. The other faction is, now we need to think about this because people also lose their Fifth Amendment rights. So that could come back and bite us. So I think there's a balancing act discussion going on right now. The one thing I don't see factoring into it is the court of public opinion, because I just don't think the Bidens give a shit. The legacy's not there. They don't care.
The Bidens have two problems. The first problem is, and this, I'm not being morbid, okay? I'm being clinically honest, actuarially. The chances, okay, when presidents come out of office, it's when they go and start making money. They build their library. People make donations to the library. Maybe they create like a nonprofit, and they can get a salary from it, and they do a book, and they, all this, like, all of a sudden,
$100,000 speaking appearances.
I mean, Obama's worth, I don't know what, Obama's not worth like 15 million. He's worth like maybe 70 or 100 million now. Maybe I'm overstating that, but Obama's worth a lot of money now compared to what he was. The reality is Joe Biden is probably not going to live long enough to see a presidential library be built.
Yeah.
And the reality is, who's going to donate money to Joe Biden's presidential library? I mean, unless some wealthy Democrat comes in and feels like they want to protect them, like, so there's not going to be a lot of monetary opportunities there. But the thing is, Joe Biden's wife, Joe Biden's brother, and his son are still hanging in the breeze with some of this. If it comes out and Trump decides that he wants to go after these people, like, where do they get their money from? You know, like the people seem to have forgotten the one thing the Bidens did is towards the end of the Obama presidency, they knew it was over. They're like, oh, this is the last thing. You know, Hillary's going to run. You know, Joe's not going to get it. So when Joe was vice president the last couple years, or last year, and even like some years afterwards, he was doing things with his son and their behavior because they never planned on actually running for office again. They were out. They were cashing out. You know what I mean? Because there's things you can do. Okay, for like, remember, what's his name? Who's the Republican? Oh shit. Was he on Crossfire? Oh fuck, I can't remember. There's a Republican guy that was on TV. He's a Republican pundit. I think he's dead now. And he was run. I think he even maybe primary George Herbert Walker Bush. He was going to run for president, and all of a sudden he's looking around, and the people, they were like, "Wait a minute, you're running for president? This is in the '80s," and he drives a Mercedes Benz. And they're like, you motherfucker, don't even buy America was a big deal in like Detroit. And all of a sudden he sold his car and went out and got a Cadillac and said that the Mercedes was his wife's car, wasn't his car. And, you know, because there's things you do that you're anticipating being looked at publicly. The Bidens were not conducting themselves in a method or in a manner that they were expecting to ever run for office again. And, like, I mean, if Trump pushes this, he could wipe these people out. He could wipe them out.
Well, and here's the thing: you can give pardons to the entire Biden family, but you start putting the squeeze on the entire organization, and you find some outlier that feels like they didn't get their fair share of the take, or they start feeling like, well, I didn't get a pardon, and now they're asking questions that could land me in a lot of jail. Pardon or not, there's certain ways around that, and I think that's the fear for the Bidens right now, is not so much that Hunter's going to talk, but who is an outlier that we're overlooking that can jam the big old banana up us?
Yeah, it's going to be one of Hunter's buddies.
Yeah.
So
somebody that feels like they didn't get the respect, they didn't get the payoff, they didn't get the protection. Maybe you can't touch Joe Biden because of a pardon. He pardons himself. Maybe you can't touch Hunter, but you can definitely start, tearing down some of the organization because there's more than 4 people making money out of this deal.
Yeah.
Who knows where it goes and how deep? So,
and that's the problem. You start going after all these presidents and going after their families. It becomes this never ending cycle. That's why, we used to be in a situation where you would say, Hillary Clinton's going to jail. It's like in no situation is a former first lady going to jail.
No.
Because if you do, it's going to be on. And these people, they decided to break all these norms. Not that a president was above the law, but we kind of lived in a world where we decided that former presidents, you weren't going to start trying to fucking destroy them. And they did it with Trump. And it's, are we going to go back to a normal, the way it used to be? Is there going to be peace and detente? Or are we going to be in like the Harry Reid nuclear option thing, where from now on, every president, when he or she leaves office, is, looking at basically being destroyed? And I think a lot of it's going to depend on how Trump behaves. I
Yeah.
feel like it's becoming pretty clear that Trump might just decide to not do some of this, but man, they were putting him through the ringer think about this. If Donald Trump didn't win this election, think about how crazy this is. I know we got to go because you don't have too much time. Donald Trump didn't win this election. The chances he would end up in jail are very high.
Very high, yeah.
And it's like, we've all moved on. Like we're talking about, we're winning and this and Cash Patel, whatever. Donald Trump still had to go down there and sit for those mugshots and be humiliated. And it's like, I don't know.
Was he humiliated, or did he look at it as a badge of honor?
Okay, humiliated is the wrong word. Donald Trump is a counterpuncher.
That was
He
fuel.
says it, it's obvious. When you hit him, he likes to hit you.
Yeah.
The best thing you can do to Donald Trump is to go after him, because then he can come back at you. Even politically, he operates that way.
Yeah.
He's a reactionary. And when it comes to be March in 2025 and Trump's sitting in that White House, I'm just like,
I tend to believe him when he says my revenge is just going to be success.
We'll see. All right. Well, we're going to wrap this.
Well, hold on.
Go
I
ahead.
got one more thing I want to hit real quick if we got time.
Okay.
So
if you got time, we got time.
You brought up the point that people will do things for political reasons, just to set themselves up politically. So my lovely wife dropped a little nugget on me. I think it was last night, and caveat being, I haven't found any documentation. I haven't looked, but when it comes to gossip like this, she's usually fairly accurate.
Mm-hmm.
And what she told me last night was old Donald Jr. gave Kimberly Guilfoyle the old heave-ho.
I forgot about that.
Do
you have time?
But waited till after the election and so it wasn't a distraction. So speaking of things you do politically and consider timing, if he did kick her to the curb, that's interesting.
Yes, he did. So I know quite a bit about this. So we're not
she's
going to do
got
a police
big tits, so I figured you would.
Okay, look, this is the John 911 podcast. I'm going to be completely honest here. I think Kimberly Guilfoyle has ugly boobs, and her boobs are ugly. And the reason I know her boobs are ugly is because half the time she dresses in something that's see-through and you can see, and it's like, ooh, she doesn't have great looking boobs. Well, so a couple things. So I sent this to you. And so it come out that Donald Trump had nominated her to be the ambassador to Greece. And I was like, ooh, I don't know about that one. It's like Greece is kind of like, there's a lot going on in Greece. There's commies there. There's terrorism there. It's a tough neighborhood. It's like, I don't know. Like, okay. Like, they were like Liechtenstein or some shit, but like, whatever. And it's like there's the headline was Kimberly Guilfoyle puts on a brave face, and the media, the British media does. They literally the best part about British media is the headline, because they try to write the story in the headline. And when you look at the change of Kimberly Guilfoyle's face since when she was, first at Fox News, and then say like the past like 6, 7, 8, 7 years, it's crazy.
She's not looks aging well.
It's not even that. Like aging, like I like older women generally. I never really liked usually like younger girls, but like Kimberly Guilfoyle, she looks Kimberly Guilfoyle looks like a trans person, a drag queen trying to dress as Kimberly Guilfoyle. Kimberly Guilfoyle looks like somebody wearing a rubber Kimberly
It's
Guilfoyle Halloween
Caitlyn
mask.
Jenner with better makeup.
I mean, it's like it's crazy looking, and then like it's come out like she's this big party girl. Apparently, they call her Margarita Girl, and she she and Don Jr. Dude, did you hear? Like like he calls her Pooh Bear. You know what her nickname for him is?
What's that?
It's either Trump Mint or Mint Trump. Mint as in, the place that prints the money.
Yeah.
Dude,
Well, I
she is
pegged her as a
tacky
gold
as,
digger way back in the day. What, her first husband was what, Gavin Newsom?
yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going anywhere he's been.
And, well, here's the thing, like, so, like, I like Kimberly Guilfoyle, and, like, I remember she used to be really pretty, and, like, I'm not, like, someone who attacks, but Kimberly Guilfoyle they call her Margarita Girl, and she wears all this crazy shit, and, like, there's even, like, apparently Donald Trump Jr., Don Jr. has been complaining that she has full makeup artists around all the time. And he was like, there's like 3 or 4 women that are always around her. And she won't leave the house without full Hollywood makeup on. And like, if you've never seen this, if you live in a city that has TV stations, if you're listening at home, you're like, what the fuck are you talking about? If you ever get a chance to interface with, say, like a news anchor, someone who actually sits in a studio and reads the news, and if you see them out in public, even a guy, the amount of makeup you have to wear to look normal under all these heavy lights, because they light you up for these TV shows. I mean, it's crazy looking. Like, I remember, like, I was in this Kroger this one night. And this woman, she was an 11 o'clock anchor at one of the news stations. She's a black woman, and she walked in, and and she, like, I was just like, I mean, it looks like Halloween makeup. It's so heavy, and it's like, holy fuck, I had forgotten. And apparently, Kimberly Guilfoyle every day has full makeup applied. She won't leave the house with a full makeup. She went hunting. She went on a hunting trip. Like, do you I remember we talked about this I don't think you were on the pod at the time, but like Kimberly Guilfoyle went on a hunting trip with Don Jr. Like and it's like, oh,
Man.
I'm a hunter. And she's wearing like the redhead cold weather gear or whatever she's got, or she probably something cry or whatever. And she had full makeup on. And it's like, who's taking this photograph?
The painted nails, the earrings, the
Yeah,
lipstick, and pink camo.
but it's like, he took her hunting one time. She brought like a camera crew and makeup people. And, he's the guy who's like, he buys the special detergent to put in his washing machine so his hunting clothes don't
Yeah.
smell. And, it's just like, this whole thing is crazy. She's like, oh, I'm going to go hunting with Don Jr. It's like, this is ridiculous. This woman, it's like,
You
yeah,
want
and
me to
apparently,
sit in this blind after I just got my nails done?
yeah, well, the thing is, she did because she'll do anything for Don Mint or Minty Don or whatever she calls him. But it's like the second he marries her, dude, she's gonna clean his ass out, and it's
Well,
just like,
according to the wife, he kicked her to the curb. So
um,
I'm wondering if Greece isn't part exile
oh,
and
it is
part you're going to be an
payoff.
ambassador, shut the fuck up and don't tell the
Well,
family secrets. This is what you're going to get monetarily, and you can go away quietly or we'll destroy you.
well, yes, yes, I mean, like a lot of people that may not pay attention to ambassadorships, they are political payoffs. When you're appointed as ambassador. I mean, there's people that are appointed as ambassadors, like, if you're the ambassador to Iraq or the ambassador to Saudi Arabia or the ambassador to, Russia, like those are serious appointments. Like you're a career diplomat. You know what I mean? Like this is important work.
Yeah.
But like they call it the Court of St. James, the ambassador to the United Kingdom. It's like, we don't need the U.S. ambassador to the United Kingdom is a big deal. It's a prestigious job. It has a lot of pomp and circumstance with it. Kimberly Guilfoyle would never get that. But the reality is, we don't need the ambassador to the United Kingdom to tell the president what the Brits are thinking, because we talk all the time. We can talk on the phone. We speak the same language. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it's not that hard. So it's kind of like a fluff thing. And it's like, well, they shoved her off to Greece, and it's like, man, like,
So is Guilfoyle Greek?
I don't think so. I think
Because if it is, I could see that being part of the payoff also.
I don't know what her maiden name is. Maybe is her maiden name Guilfoyle? Maybe. I don't, that doesn't sound Greek to me. I just, look, let's just be real here, okay? Let's be real.
She's getting exiled.
So, yeah, she is. She's getting paid off. She's apparently known President Trump, for 20 years. That's how she met Don Jr.
Well, yeah.
Like, yeah, she's, but apparently, let's just be real. Let's say you and I, we are Russian FSB officers, or we are Chinese MSS, Ministry of State Security officers, okay? And we're reading the newspaper just like you. Kimberly Guilfoyle puts on a brave face, and then we're laughing at the photographs. And then it's like, okay, she's going to go to Greece. And it's like, she's kind of a partier. The word that was used in my office to describe Kimberly Guilfoyle was she dresses kind of hookerish. And it's like, that was not me saying that. It was like, that was women saying that. It's like, yeah, I kind of see that. And apparently she was embarrassing Don Trump Jr. And, he's been dating this other girl for 6 months. But anyway, I would think that if we were foreign intelligence officers running a department, we would be sending extra people to Greece.
Oh,
because what I would do is I'd be like, okay, excuse me, we're going to put extra agents in Greece to work things, but what we're going to do is we're going to send some good-looking guys too. Some like business guys
with money.
Yeah, money, and are handsome and suave,
Partiers.
and get into the parties and the events and get in with old Kimberly Guilfoyle, and I would do everything I could to penetrate that ambassadorship.
Literally and figuratively.
And
there's the name of the pod.
And well, here's penetrating the ambassador.
Penetrating Guilfoyle.
Okay.
I'm a sick fucker.
Yeah, you perked up. You're like, yeah, guns, politics, penetrating Guilfoyle. You all perked up. So, here's the thing. At this point, she's one of the only women that Fox News or like any major agency has had to write a sex scandal payoff check to people for. You know that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Fox News.
Not as the victim.
Yeah, she's the perpetrator.
Yeah.
And it's like, look, her reputation, the way she behaves, and the sex scandal. Imagine this. Of all the people nominated by President Trump to be in his administration, what if everybody gets through but Kimberly Guilfoyle? It's entirely possible.
Maybe that's the plan.
I mean, she is going to be a lightning rod, and there is no downside.
She may be the sacrificial lamb.
They don't normally go after ambassadors, but we'll see. I don't know. Republican insiders are basically telling her, like, "Hey, we're gonna take care of you. We're not gonna throw you. We're not gonna let you be like Omarosa.
Yeah.
We're gonna take care of you." And
but
so
you've got to play your part, though.
They may whip up the votes in the Senate and it'd be like, all right, you know, you're gonna be like, your bitch, you're gonna vote for fucking Kimberly Guilfoyle to be the ambassador, fucking Greece. It's like, oh my god, the woman is a
And
train wreck.
that picture, the one you sent me, the brave face, that I looked at that, and the first thing I thought is an epileptic during the middle of O face.
Stop. Like, look, you know, Kimberly Guilfoyle. Look, Kimberly Guilfoyle. Like, I'm gonna throw her bone, and we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna toss this one. Kimberly Guilfoyle is one of those people that when she gets to be in her 80s, and if she decides to write a book about her life, it'll be one of the best insider books written, because she has lived the lives of 5 people.
Oh yeah.
Like, you really got to give it to her. Like, as much as I'm harping on her and the, you know, brave face, I mean, she really is, and she kind of sells herself as that. She's like always doing something new and always doing, you know,
Always figuring out an angle.
She's always got an angle. She's, you know, and it's
she's
like,
good at it. So I mean, more power to
so
her.
far. I mean, she's the ambassador to Greece. I mean, I couldn't be the ambassador to Greece. So, I mean, you know, none of our wives could be the ambassador to Greece, right? So,
I wouldn't mind being the ambassador to Sweden, but, you know, I'd have to see if they still have the Swedish bikini team.
yeah, well, the other place I know.
Now I'm really aging myself there.
Yeah, I just know that you're still not allowed. I don't think you can be ambassador anywhere to Europe because you still can't go to Mallorca.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
You have a travel restriction. So, well, this wraps up episode 357 of the John 911 podcast. You want to see any more stories or pictures or links of Kimberly Guilfoyle's face? Please go to the website at john911.com. It's JOHN1911.com. Remember, it's all about shooting guns and having fun, everybody. Have a good day.
Have a great week.